Alright, so I'm working through a series of posts that I'm doing about a character I'm modeling from AI. I'm calling her Joliette Fleurs. And one thing I've done, I started rigging her up. And so this is her rig currently. Let's hide some of those bones but we'll talk about them here in a second. Because what I want to talk about is a bone that I put in there for breathing. Breathing I don't think is that difficult to do, so I'm going to tell you how I do it. So there's this bone here, and if you scale it up, she breathes in. You scale it down, she breathes out. There are two actions here. The first is her chest grows when she breathes in, but her belly shrinks a little bit. Basically, it moves the volume up into her chest a little bit and then back down again. So I want to show you how I do that. So first of all, this bone, notice I've got everything locked except the X and Z axis. I can scale it. Then let's bring those bones back in so we can see what's going on. So what I have is there's a sternum bone right in the middle here. It's very difficult to see with the colors. That's it right there. This sternum bone is basically the parent of everything. So if I move that, it moves her entire chest and everything. But it's just the pectorals and breasts and other mass here. The ribs aren't a child of that. So what I did was I made this a child of the breathing bone along with her ribs. Then I put the breathing bone right back here just about on her spine. And now if I scale it, notice it won't scale on the y-axis because that's locked. It'll only scale on the z-axis, which is forward and back, and the x-axis, which is right and left. And so what will happen is her ribs will expand, and that's what these bones down here are. You can watch them expanding and contracting. Mostly going forward, but also going back a little bit, and that's mainly because that breathe bone is so far back. But then the other action that I've got is her midriff. If you've watched my tutorial about rigging the midriff, you've probably already got one of these. If not, go find my tutorial on YouTube and watch how to set up a midriff. So what I did then is I took these outer midriff bones and I gave them constraints called breathing. What they did is they just copy the breathing bone scale, but at a power of -1. So that way, when the breathing bone scales up, they scale down, and vice versa. So that's what makes her midriff shrink when her chest grows, and vice versa. Now the other thing to notice about the breathing is the x-axis isn't growing as much as the z-axis. Now why is that? Because I've got a limit, or I've got a lock on the y-axis, but no lock on x and z. Well, the thing is, I've also got a couple of constraints there on that breathing bone. They're both limit scale. They're both only scale of 1 on the x-axis and on the z-axis, but the x-axis has a power of 0.9, influence 0.9, and the z-axis has an influence of 0.7. So what that means is that the bone can scale more on its z than on its x. And that's the full way that I do breathing. So this way you can add breathing to your character very simply. You can key that bone and have her breathe in and out. It's something I like to do to give a little life to my characters. Alright, thanks for watching everyone. This is the pose I've got from the reference image. Trying to make sure they're the same. Still have some work to do on the necklace and some other things, but right, and her veil and her hair. But I've got a lot of the bits finished up. It's looking pretty nice.